Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, especially if you're a college football or a college basketball fan. That's all we do here, videos every single day. We also have a great Patreon page that we're putting a lot of time and effort into right now. A lot of great stuff coming in the off season for that. Go check out our website that Joey's put together. We have 7 great writers for our website, and we're looking for more. So if you're interested for writing for Golden Blue Dude, just email me. And one of the biggest things that I'm most proud of is our merchandise store. We have a lot of great stuff over there, and we're actually running a special today. We're offering 10% off up until 11:30 this evening. So go check out the merchandise today. Right now I wanted to talk about Alabama and Bryce Young. Bryce Young, the quarterback for Alabama, had an outstanding year last year. He won the Heisman Trophy. 366 for 547, the 66.9%, threw for 4,872 yards, 47 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. But he's saying there's a lot for him to improve on. The 2 biggest things, communication and control of the offense. Now, they did lose wide receiver Jamison Williams, 79 receptions for 1,572 yards and 15 touchdowns. They also lost wide receiver John Mechie, 96 receptions for 1,142 yards and 8 touchdowns. And they have to replace running back Brian Robinson Jr., 271 carries for 1,343 yards. That's 5 yards a carry and 14 touchdowns. Not to fear, though. They have a lot of great wide receivers coming back, and they also went out and grabbed the Georgia wide receiver Jermaine Burton, who had 26 receptions for 497 yards and 5 touchdowns. If Jermaine Burton can keep from getting injured this year, he's going to be a great weapon for Bryce Young. And they found a nice replacement for Brian Robinson Jr. They grabbed running back Jahmyr Gibbs out of Georgia Tech. Last year, he had 143 carries for 746 yards. That's 5.2 yards a carry and 4 touchdowns. Now let's take a quick look at Alabama's schedule for 2022. They start off the season with Utah State, who went 11-3 last year, finished number 24 in the nation. Then they go on the road to Texas, who finished 5-7 last year. I'm not worried about that road trip to Texas. Then they get UL Monroe at home, who was 4-8 last year, and then Vanderbilt at home, who went 2-10 in 2021. Vanderbilt was historically a bad team last year. Here's where the schedule starts to get a little bit tough. They go on the road to Arkansas. Last year, they beat them 42-35. Arkansas finished 9-4, ranked number 21 in the nation. Then they come back home to Texas A&M, who they lost to last year, 41-38. Texas A&M finished 8-4, number 26 in the nation. I know, technically not ranked. Then go back on the road to Tennessee, who they beat last year 52-24. Tennessee finished 7-6. Back home to Mississippi State, who they beat 49-9. They finished 7-6. Then they finally get their bye week. After that, they go back on the road. The first road trip will be on the road to LSU, who they beat last year, but barely, 20-14. LSU finished 6-7. Then on the road to Ole Miss, who they did beat last year 42-21, but they finished 10-3, number 11 in the nation. Then they get their FCS opponent Austin Peay, and finally a home game against Auburn, who they beat in overtime last year 24-22. Auburn finished the season 6-7. Honestly, I'm not worried about any of this schedule, but if there's one game that Alabama fans might need to worry about, it is that road trip to Ole Miss. Remember, they'll be coming off a road trip to LSU where I expect them to win, but they stay on the road to play a very dangerous Ole Miss. So if there's a game to worry about, if you're an Alabama fan, that's the game. However, I don't expect it to surprise Nick Saban. I expect Alabama to win that. I'm just saying, if Alabama were to lose, that's the game that I'm looking at. Now back to Bryce Young. You know, he won the Heisman last year. He had fantastic numbers. He has the chance of doing something that only one other individual has done, and that's win 2 Heisman trophies. The only person that's ever done that was Archie Manning. And that hasn't been done in like 60 years. So really the only thing that I would be worried about for Bryce Young as an Alabama fan would be him overthinking it. I think if he just does what he did last year, Alabama's going to be dominating. Alabama's going to be fine. They'll go undefeated, get to the playoffs, get to the national championship, and win the national championship in dominating fashion. So the only thing that rears its ugly head in this situation is overthinking it. And him saying there's a long list of things for him to work on leads me to believe he might be overthinking it just a little bit. Don't overthink it, Bryce Young. You had a fantastic year last year. You won the freaking Heisman Trophy. I know Alabama didn't win the national championship, but that's okay. Still had a great year, and I expect Alabama to win it this year, as long as you don't overthink it. People don't realize that is a difficult thing for a quarterback to do, especially when they had a great season the previous year. Sometimes it gets into their head, oh man, I got to take a step further. I have to do even better than what I did last year. And that's when they start overthinking it and making mistakes. So I'm really hoping that Bryce Young doesn't do that, because I think Alabama has a chance to be a historically good team in 2022. They already have the greatest coach in all of college football, in the history of college football, Nick Saban. I think they have the best quarterback in the nation in Bryce Young, so the only thing that can hurt Bryce Young is Bryce Young. He's going to have great weapons. They have a great replacement for Brian Robinson Jr., so I truly believe that the running game is going to be top-notch. I don't think it's going to fall off all that much, if any. And honestly, I don't think there should be all that much pressure on Bryce Young, because I do think Alabama's defense is going to be one of the best in the nation as well. Much better than what they were last year. And they were okay. They weren't elite, but they were okay. This year, I think Alabama will have an elite defense. So I don't think that Bryce Young is going to have all this pressure to have to score a ton of points. So as long as he gets into his groove, doesn't overthink it, Alabama's going to be fine. Alabama's going to be great. Don't get me wrong. I understand what he's saying. Communication and him having total control of the offense was a little bit of an issue. But I'm hoping that he doesn't focus on that too much to where he starts overthinking it and the rest of his game suffers. Yes, it's a good thing to work on that, but don't let it overwhelm you to where it takes over and then the other stuff starts to suffer. Take everything in stride, don't overthink it, and Alabama will be on a roll on their way to a national championship where nobody's really going to challenge them at all. Maybe Ohio State in the playoffs. Maybe Clemson if they rebound nicely this year like I expect them to. But definitely not the regular season. I really truly don't see any challenge for Alabama in the regular season. Maybe a slight challenge with that road game to Ole Miss. But that's more based on where it fell on the calendar. Following a road trip to LSU. That's the only reason I'm saying that could be a challenge for Alabama. Other than that, I don't think any of these teams on their schedule will come anywhere close to even beating Alabama. So Bryce Young, do your thing. Don't overthink it. Correct what needs to be corrected, but don't focus on it too much to where other things go by the wayside. That's what can make you stumble and fall. You've already won the Heisman last year. Yes, it would be great to win back-to-back Heismans. Only one other player in college football history has done that. But don't let that be your focus. Just focus on being the best Bryce Young you can be, and Alabama will be just fine. You know, and here's the thing, and all you longtime subscribers already know this, but for those of you who are new to this channel, I am not an Alabama butt kisser. Not at all. In fact, last year, I predicted Alabama to have a down season. I predicted them to miss the playoffs this past year, and they should have missed the playoffs, but for whatever reason, Georgia's defense didn't show up in the SEC Championship. Alabama got to the playoffs. So I truly believe that Alabama could have a historically great team this year. Last year, I predicted Kentucky to jump up to number 2 in the SEC East. I predicted Florida to fall big time in the SEC East. Got laughed at that. I predicted the upset Stanford over USC back when USC was ranked and everybody was still believing in USC. And I predicted South Carolina to beat Auburn in a pretty good upset. So yeah, I really think that the pieces have come together for Alabama to have an historically great team. Y'all let me know in the comments section if this could be an issue in your opinion as far as Bryce Young maybe overthinking what he needs to improve on. And could it hurt Alabama? I'll always respect your opinion, but I will give you my opinion on your opinion. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.